China grants Canadian officials consular access to Kovrig, but not to Spavor. This is the Great White North Report. Alright, this just came out. So China has granted the Canadian officials consular access to Michael Kovrig, but not Michael Spavor. And according to Chinese officials, it's due to COVID-19 travel restrictions, says Global Affairs. Obviously, this means these two men are not even being held in the same prison, which would have made more sense. But they're being held in separate areas, separate detention centers. Now, remember, these two men have been in jail for the last two plus years as part of hostage diplomacy by the Chinese Communist Party to force Canada to release Meng Wanzhou, who's the CFO of Huawei, as she is arrested in Vancouver at the behest of U.S. authorities. Blah blah blah. And the Canadian government has not had a lot of access to these two men. Now, the Canadian officials in Beijing on-site virtual or consular access to detain Canadian Michael Kovrig, but not to his fellow detainee Michael Spavor, Global Affairs Canada said. The effort to gain access was led by Canadian Ambassador to China, Dominic Barton, and the meeting took place on January 21st. It cannot give details of the meeting because of privacy concerns. Now, I do believe that this is an act of reprisal for Meng's arrest, as both men are charged with spying for Canada. Right. Since their arrest, Canadian officials have only had sporadic consular access to the two men. From January to October of last year, so 2020, family and Canadian officials had no access to detainees, something the CCP attributed to efforts to control the spread of the CCP-Virus. Now, they were last granted consular access to Spavor on December 14, 2020, but that access to Spavor had been withheld because of the restrictions. Now, this is pretty ridiculous considering that the Canadian government allowed the family of Meng Wanzhou to come to Vancouver as she fights extradition and her bail conditions in her $1 million mansion in Vancouver. She has two of them, by the way, $2 million mansions in Vancouver. Now, while Kovrig and Spavor are sitting in jail with no access to the outside world, she gets to walk around with a GPS monitoring bracelet and can find her home from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. Meanwhile, she goes shopping, goes to restaurants with her entourage, and when she does go places, they kick everyone out and close the doors just for her. Now, last week it emerged that Meng's husband, Liu Zhaozhong, and her two children were granted permission to come to Canada by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. Liu came in October, and December was followed by the couple's children. So much for the one-child policy. So it definitely shows you the duplicity and hypocrisy of the Chinese Communist Party, and that they will take all that you give them, but then they'll give you just enough to make you want more. There's no reason why the families of Kovrig and Spavor couldn't have gone to China and seen these two men in a show of good faith. We did the same. We did that for Meng. She's not under no real duress, but these men are. And it's time for our Prime Minister to get tough on China, as well as the rest of the Canadian government. This makes us look bad. It makes us look weak. But anyway, that's my update on Spavor and Kovrig. Hopefully these two men can be released, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. But here's for the best. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report.